Americans in the 1970s were skinny because they ate completely differently. In 1970, only 15% of American adults were obese. Lucky Charms existed but was not candy disguised as breakfast food.
Some people are just meant to be fat. Some people live in bigger bodies naturally, and that's okay. Not everyone was meant to be skinny. Being healthy comes in all shapes and sizes. Obesity is a disease. There's nothing we can do about our weight. It's my hormones, it's my metabolism, it's blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we have heard this argument so much from the fat acceptance community, health at every size people, and my favorite, the anti-diet dietitians, who love to tout this idea that obesity is just a body type, that some people are just meant to be obese and there's really nothing that you can do about it, and that, you know what, it's actually healthy and okay if you're fat. There are even doctors out there who study obesity as a disease. And why is it that suddenly all Americans are fat? What is going on? What is this obesity gene? And why all of a sudden are Americans fatter than ever? And I always find this so comical and so infuriatingly frustrating because my argument has been for a long time, like, okay, if obesity was a body type, if some people were just meant to be obese, then why was it that before the 1960s, really, obese people were like an enigma? We have never been as fat as we are today. Obesity statistics have dramatically increased since the 1950s, 1960s era. Back in the day, people didn't used to be obese, okay? They just were not. And there were many factors for this. The two biggest, diet and exercise. It is no secret that people eat more and exercise less. Except for some reason, when it comes to obesity and fat acceptance now, people seem to just forget that fact. They gloss over it. Even doctors gloss over it. And they, like I said, some of them study it as like, oh my God, what's going on? We can't figure it out. What is the cause of obesity? What do you mean, what is the cause of obesity? We know what the cause of obesity is. It's eating too much and not exercising enough. But it's really funny how some people will just totally gloss over, I guess, human history as a whole. They just seem to forget that, like, there was a time before fast food was introduced that people were not fat because they want to blame it on all other reasons except for the fact that they're eating too much and not exercising enough. If it were genetic, if it were just something how humans were meant to be, then wouldn't there have been more obese people in the past, even earlier than the 1960s, 1970s? Humans do not evolve in 60, 70 years. It just doesn't happen like that. So if some people were just meant to be obese, meant to be fat, no matter what they eat or how much exercise they did, then we would have had a lot more obese people back in the day, but we didn't. And that's why I think this video that I'm going to react to today caught my eye, because this is the point I have been making since I started YouTube, basically. It just seems to be this point that everyone wants to gloss over. They want to do all these other studies and they want to figure out all these other reasons for why they're fat instead of just owning up to the fact that they're eating too much and they're not exercising enough. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to react to this video called When Americans Were Still Skinny, What 1970s Americans Ate. But real quick, I just want to take this time to remind you guys to subscribe to my YouTube channel or Spotify podcast to be notified for more episodes from me. As some of you guys know, they are cracking down a lot on my YouTube channel, so I may not be posting as much content on here regularly, but I am on Spotify, which has all of my episodes that YouTube has deleted or did not let me post. It is on my Spotify podcast now, Whitney Holcomb. It is both video and audio, so if you like the video version, don't worry. Spotify basically works like YouTube now, so I will leave the links to my Spotify below, as well as my book, When You're 100 Pounds, and my guided weight loss journals if you guys are interested about my weight loss journey and how I did it and how you can too. But anyway, let's just dive into this video. I'm pretty excited to watch it, and let's see what this guy has to say about 1970s America and why we were skinny then and not now.
Americans in the 1970s were skinny because they ate completely differently. Not because they had more willpower or better genetics, but because the entire food environment supported natural thinness in ways that seem impossible today.
Yep. And just real quick, I want to point out, like, I know some of this stuff already because I have parents who were born and grew up in the 1960s and 70s. And all these things were things that they told me. Like, they didn't have as much fast food around. They got more exercise. They did eat completely differently than we do today.
In 1970, only 15% of American adults were obese. The average American weighed 25 pounds less than today. This wasn't because they exercised more or tried harder to be thin. It was because everything about how, when, and what they ate was fundamentally different.
25 pounds less, that's pretty significant. That's pretty significant. And if you think about it, when you look around at everyone, I mean, most people, most adults, and children now, unfortunately, in our society, and not even just in America, I think it's just in the Western world in general, most of them could lose about 25 pounds, right? I mean, the low end, at least 10 pounds, but most probably 25 pounds. So I think that's interesting.
The transformation that followed wasn't gradual. It was systematic restructuring of American food that made weight gain inevitable for most people. Understanding what Americans ate in the 1970s reveals exactly how and why everything changed. Let's walk through what America ate in the 1970s. Let's step into that world. Breakfast was minimal and rushed. The typical 1970s breakfast was black coffee and toast, maybe a glass of orange juice.
So it's interesting too, as far as like what people ate for breakfast. I was watching some other like YouTube video about Kellogg's and also about orange juice and how it was introduced into the American diet, and how even before that, people didn't drink orange juice or have things like cereal for breakfast. Like there was no idea of like, oh, breakfast foods. You just kind of ate whatever. And then it was Kellogg's came along. They had a bunch of corn and they wanted to make this cereal. I mean, I'm missing all the key details, but basically it was all advertising. Okay, they advertised to America that, hey, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. When no, that's not necessarily true. But they made it true through advertising because they wanted people to start eating breakfast regularly. They wanted people to buy their food. Same thing with orange juice. I mean, I don't think people really ate or drank orange juice back in the day. But then the guy, I think it was who started Tropicana or one of the big orange juice companies. Again, I'm missing all the key details, so don't quote me on any of this, but this is the gist of it. He had a bunch of orange juice to sell, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to make this part of the American diet, specifically, a part of breakfast. And he advertised as being super healthy for everyone. You got to have this, your vitamin C. And that now it has become a staple of American breakfast diets. But it is just really interesting how much these food corporations have become ingrained in our culture and how they have really, I mean, changed the way we eat and subsequently changed our health, okay, and made us fat and made us addicted to this stuff. But it is interesting because this is right around that time, the 1960s, 70s, when those changes started to happen. And, look where we are now.
Eggs and bacon were weekend treats, not daily fuel. Most adults left the house on minimal food because breakfast was not considered the most important meal of the day. Children might get cereal, but cereal bowls were small and portions were reasonable. The cereal itself was less sugary than modern versions. Lucky Charms existed but was not candy disguised as breakfast food. Frosted Flakes had less sugar. The cereals
Yep. Again, that's the thing too. I mean, just talking to my parents when they talk about having fast food or really any other kind of food, I mean, they say everything, the portion sizes are bigger now. Like back in the day, my mom said they would go to McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, and they would get like, okay, a burger and fries and a Coke. And it was like the child size version. Okay. And but that was for everyone. Like, I don't know if they even had child size version back then. It was just, oh, everyone got a small burger, a small fry, and a small Coke. And that was enough for them. Right. And then they started introducing more sizes, right? Because they got greedy. They wanted to make more money. Okay. So they put in more sugar, more fat, more salt because they realized, hey, people are getting hooked on this stuff. And if we can get them to eat more of it and make them feel like they're getting a value by giving them bigger portion sizes, they're going to come back again and again. And well, they
were
did.
breakfast food, not dessert. Orange juice came frozen in small cans. You would mix 1 can with 3 cans of water. The serving size was 4 ounces, not the 12-ounce glasses that became standard later. The juice was concentrated and intended to be diluted, making it less caloric per serving. Coffee was black, or with minimal cream and sugar. The coffee drinks that would explode in popularity, lattes, frappuccinos, specialty beverages with hundreds of calories, did not exist.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I remember even my grandparents, right? They drank Folgers. That was all they drank, which is like, "Blah, I wouldn't drink that now today." But that was what they drank, and they drink it black. I mean, in my household growing up, even like it was either black or with like a little bit of half and half. And I actually did drink my coffee with just half and half. Like I never put any sweeteners into it until I moved down to Florida, actually, and I kind of got hooked on the sugary creamers. See, it happens quick, even when you're aware of it. But and that was because like my grandma, every time I'd go over there, my other grandma, right? She had all the flavored creamers. They're so yummy. So now I'm hooked. I've got a bunch of sugary creamers in my refrigerator, but I make it work. But yeah, as far as the frappuccinos though and the sugary coffee, that's what it is. Okay, Starbucks for the most part is not real coffee. It's coffee that is meant to be added with sugar and whipped cream and all these other ingredients so that people are really drinking like coffee flavored milk and sugar, basically. Again, gets people addicted, gets people coming back.
Coffee was stimulant, not liquid dessert. Breakfast out was rare and special. Pancake houses and diners existed, but were not daily destinations. The enormous breakfast platters that became standard were still reasonable portions in the 1970s. Going out for breakfast was a weekend family activity, not a workday routine.
That was another thing my parents have always told me, and my grandparents too, like eating out, they didn't do that a lot. You just didn't do that. Like on special occasions, maybe if you were traveling, but everyone had home cooked meals. And I remember even growing up, that was the case for us. Well, I mean, we had fast food a lot. Okay. So no, we did eat out a lot, I guess, fast food. But as far as like going to like restaurants and stuff, that just didn't happen. And mostly because it's like a money thing too. It's expensive. But nowadays, though, it's like, I don't know. Everyone and their mother goes out to eat all the time. I mean, it's just like on the regular. Everyone has the DoorDash on their phone. They order food out. Like that's on the regular. And it's interesting too, because a lot of people claim to be broke and not have a lot of money, but yet, a lot of people are still eating out. And it adds up both on your waistline and in your wallet.
Lunch was light and functional. The standard lunch was a sandwich, maybe chips, and water or milk. The sandwich was 2 slices of bread with meat, cheese, and condiments. No double meat, no foot-long subs, no massive portions. Lunch was fuel to get through the afternoon. School lunches were institutional but modest. A main course, vegetable, fruit, and milk. The portions were appropriate for children's needs. The food wasn't gourmet, but it wasn't excessive. School lunch was nutrition, not entertainment.
So different than when we grew up, right? I remember going to school and getting the school lunches, and they were never great. But I do remember definitely in middle school, middle school and high school, pizza and French fries every single day on the menu, and they had other stuff too. Nothing that really tasted great, but it was pizza and French fries, which I would always get, and then these massive chocolate chip cookies. And then we did have milk and the juices, but also chocolate milk, which again, I would always get that because again, you're a kid, you don't know any better. You're going to get the thing that tastes better, the one that has sugar. So yeah, none of this is surprising to me so far. I think, like I said, there's a reason we're fat now and why they were thinner back then.
Brown bag lunches were common for workers and students. Sandwich, piece of fruit, maybe cookies. The lunch fit in a paper bag because it was actually bag-sized. The modest lunch was practical and sufficient. Fast food lunch was occasional, not daily. McDonald's was a treat, not routine. The portions were much smaller. A hamburger was actually hamburger-sized. Large fries were smaller than today's small.
Wow, I didn't even know that. So their large fry back then was smaller than today's small. But yeah, I mean, it checks out with like what my parents said. Like one story I know my mom told me, she was like with Burger King when Burger King came out and they introduced the Whopper. And like, I guess like the tagline was like, oh, you can't eat it with you, or you have to eat it with 2 hands because it was so big. And my mom was like, yeah, back then, oh, we thought it was like we could never finish a whole one, right? It was just a huge burger. And, fast forward to now they have like double Whoppers, triple Whoppers, and it's like everyone, my mom, all of us included, be like, I can easily eat that Whopper, right? It's not a big deal. I mean, even me now, someone who's aware of it, I can easily eat that. Okay, I could easily eat a full on value meal, the largest size. It's just crazy how much we have been conditioned, our appetites have been conditioned to accommodate for more food, how much we have been conditioned to always want more food. We are just inundated with advertisements all the time to eat and eat and eat and get more and bigger. So, yeah, it's interesting. You're really seeing the rise of obesity at this era. And a lot of it seems to have to do with corporate greed, right? All these big companies, they want more money.
The fast food meal was a reasonable exception, not a daily norm. Business lunches were social events, but food portions were normal restaurant size. The three martini lunch was about alcohol, not enormous food portions. Business dining was
I mean, I don't know that that's much better. I think it's probably better maybe to eat instead of have 3 martinis. I mean, I don't know. I don't know actually. Again, they seem to have less health problems back then, so maybe that's the key. I wish it
relationship
was.
building, not competitive eating. Dinner was structured and reasonable. Dinner was meat, starch, and vegetable. One serving of each. The plate was not overloaded. Seconds were not automatic. The meal was complete and satisfying without being excessive. Home cooking meant actual cooking. Meat was cooked from a raw state. Vegetables were fresh or frozen, not from cans loaded with sodium. Potatoes were actual potatoes, not processed products. The cooking process started with recognizable ingredients. Portion sizes were human scale. A chicken breast was a normal chicken breast size, not the enlarged versions that later became standard.
And I think that's interesting though too, because here they are talking about the things they were eating, but not only were their portion sizes different back then, for sure, but also just their food and their quality of food, because this was back before. I mean, at least I think it was maybe around this time. It was when they started, okay, mass producing all of the food that we eat now. So they're filling the chickens with all kinds of stuff to make them bigger and plumper, which really probably makes the chickens less healthier and it makes us less healthier as a result and makes it not taste as good. But that is true. I mean, if you look at today, you look like a regular chicken breast, it's huge compared to like an organic chicken breast. There's a huge difference in the size, right? So that's another thing too. I mean, our animals have gotten bigger. I think probably even our fruits and our vegetables gotten bigger and sweeter because of all the genetic modification they can do. So that's an interesting point to make too.
Steaks were 6 to 8 ounces, not 16-ounce slabs. The protein portion was reasonable, and it was supplemented with vegetables and starch. Vegetables were an expected part of dinner, not optional, not negotiable. Children ate vegetables because that is what dinner included. The vegetables were not smothered in cheese or butter. They were prepared simply and eaten as necessary nutrition. Bread was served with dinner, but was not unlimited. A roll or a slice per person, not a basket that was constantly refilled. The bread was an accompaniment, not a preview of the main course. Restaurant portions were reasonable and finite. What you ordered was what you got. No unlimited breadsticks, no endless salad, no supersizing. The meal had boundaries that everyone accepted as normal. Snacking was limited and controlled. Snacking between meals was discouraged. Children were told it would ruin their appetite, and that was considered a bad thing.
Yeah, that's another thing too. The snacking, I think, is a big part of what has made us fat. And something my parents told me about too. They just didn't eat all the time like we do now. Like now, eating all the time, snacking, it's just become such a big part of our culture and like our everyday life. And it was like back then, they didn't think about it as much. They just, okay, you had food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snack food, what's that? Right. And also because they were so busy doing other stuff, work, school, it was just how it was done. Those were their habits. And it's just weird how quickly that can change. Again, a lot having to do with the big food corporations giving us the commercials and telling us, oh, it's snack time, snack o'clock. Basically, they have manufactured this idea that we need to eat all the time and we need to have meals and snacks when that just wasn't how we did it before. And that's why I think it's so interesting. It's like, yeah, back in the day, people didn't have to really think about what they were eating. And that's why they would eat things like cake and sugar and real butter and all this stuff. But it didn't matter because they were eating it in normal amounts. And this is something I always say too. You can have whatever you want. You can eat McDonald's every day if you really want to, as long as you're eating it in a normal amount. Okay. As long as you're not excessively overeating, because that's what causes weight gain is the excess calories. But I think that this is why when this food was introduced into our diet and the portion sizes changed and our activity levels changed, why it was so hard for people to understand what was happening to them, because diet, fitness, most people, most normal people, especially back then, like they never had to think about it. And so they think, well, I'm eating the same stuff as I always was. I'm still eating fries and burgers, or I'm still eating my normal stuff, but I'm just gaining weight. It has to be something else. No, it's just the fact that you're eating more of it now, whether you realize it or not. It creeps up on you. Your idea of what is a small or big portion can easily change. Like the more you get accustomed to eating bigger portion sizes or more food, the easier it gets, right? And then your perception changes. Whereas before you thought that was a huge portion, now you're like, oh, that's just a normal portion. So if I really want a huge portion, I have to go up even more. Yeah, so it's just interesting.
The three-meal structure was maintained through parental enforcement and social expectation. Snack foods existed, but they were not omnipresent. Typical choices were a small bag of chips, a cookie, or a piece of fruit. The snacks were treats, not meals. Portions were small, and they were consumed occasionally rather than constantly. Vending machines offered fewer options and smaller portions. A candy bar was a reasonable size, and soda came in 6 or 12 ounces. Vending machine choices were limited and portioned appropriately. After-school snacks were simple: a glass of milk and cookies, a piece of fruit, or a peanut butter sandwich if you were really hungry. The snack was a bridge to dinner, not a meal replacement. Late night
Yeah, that's another thing too. I feel like, again, just people's ideas and perceptions of portions have really changed. And so, what would have been considered a meal back then is just a snack for some people now today.
eating was rare and discouraged. Kitchens closed after dinner cleanup. Refrigerators were not stocked with easy-to-grab processed foods. Eating after dinner required effort and
Yeah, that's true too, because they didn't have as much processed food back then, right? So if you wanted something, you had to make it or you had to get fresh ingredients. And there's only so long that fresh food stays good in your fridge or your freezer, right? Or in your pantry. So they didn't have as much food just sitting around because it would go bad. So I think probably people shopped more back then on a daily basis because it's like, okay, get this stuff for dinner and then have to go back the next day to get more food because this goes bad because it wasn't filled with all kinds of preservatives. I mean, now, right, we stock full our fridges and freezers with all kinds of stuff, and that stuff doesn't go bad for months sometimes. And I think that we don't really think about that. Like, is that normal for food to not go bad after a few months?
intention. Beverages were simple and small. Water was the default beverage. From the tap, from fountains, from hoses in backyards. Water was free and available everywhere. Bottled water did not exist as a consumer product.
That's true. I always forget that. I always forget that bottled water was also something, a marketing ploy they got us to buy. My parents have said something about this too before, where they're like, we could never understand it. Bottled water, this is so silly, this is so stupid. But flash forward now, I mean, my parents almost drink too much bottled water to the point where I'm like, you guys need to get like those stainless steel bottled waters because it's just very wasteful, right? The plastics. I don't drink bottled water. I mean, unless I'm out, right? I have my refillable water bottle. But yeah, we used to drink from the tap. And I admit, I don't like drinking from the tap or the water hoses. I used to do it when I was a kid, but because I think it tastes nasty and gross, so I have to have filtered water. But that wasn't the case back then.
Hydration was simple and cheap. Soda was a treat beverage. 6.5-ounce bottles were special occasion drinks. 12-ounce cans were a large size.
I doubt they had like the big gallon jugs. It just didn't exist back then. So yeah, it's not. I wonder if you could even buy like a 6 pack of like the bottles back then. I don't know. I don't know how it worked back then. If it was like you had to pay per like Coke can, but that's an interesting point too.
The idea of 32-ounce big gulps or 64-ounce sodas was incomprehensible. Soda was dessert, not daily hydration. Milk was served with meals for children. 8-ounce glasses, not 16-ounce pours. The milk was whole milk, but portions were reasonable. Milk was nutrition, not entertainment. Juice was a breakfast beverage in small portions. 4-ounce glasses of orange juice. Apple juice for children in similar portions. Juice was not an all-day beverage or a meal replacement. Beer was an adult beverage in standard 12-ounce servings. 16-ounce and larger sizes were not common.
So it's interesting they're talking about like liquid calories now. And yeah, they're right. I mean, we have so many different kinds of juices and drinks now that just didn't exist back then. I don't drink sodas or juices on the regular. I used to back when I was obese as a kid. We used to have like Sprite in the fridge all the time and Coca-Cola. And yeah, I remember drinking that more than water. And it's so weird now because I just can't imagine myself doing that now because it kind of grosses me out. It's just too sugary. But even when they're talking about like the milk and the juices that kids would drink, I think both of those were also just something that was marketed towards us because I don't think people also used to drink just milk on the regular. I mean, that's for like babies, right? But somehow that has become part of our diet. I think that was also another marketing thing, another capitalism thing. But again, clearly, if you're going to drink anything, milk is probably better because at least there is protein in that, right? There's more nutrients versus something like an apple juice or soda, which is mostly just sugar that just runs right through you, doesn't do anything for you. At least like milk kind of helps you keep more satiated. And also they had it in smaller amounts, right? That's going to be the key throughout all of this, I think, was portion control. They just didn't eat as much.
Beer was a social drink with clear portion boundaries. Alcoholic beverages were not calorie bombs disguised as refreshment. Dessert was occasional and special.
I mean, I don't know. As far when they're talking about the alcohol, I think alcohol has always been a pretty big thing in our culture and in human history. I think there were always people who took it overboard. So I don't know. I don't think that anyone ever thought of drinking an alcohol beverage as like a refreshment. I don't think that they think of it that way now either. But I do wonder if maybe we have a lot more like sugary cocktails now and like slushies and drinks. Probably do. Again, is that the main culprit of the weight gain? I don't know. I don't think so. There are plenty of overweight people who don't drink alcohol at all. But I guess it's another
It
factor.
was a Sunday dinner tradition, not a daily expectation. Apple pie, chocolate cake, ice cream, but only after special meals and in reasonable portions. Dessert was celebration food, not everyday entitlement. Ice cream came in pints and half gallons for families. Single serving portions were small scoops. The premium ice creams with high fat content were not common. Ice cream was a treat, served in appropriate treat-sized servings.
Yeah, that's something my grandma said too about like desserts and treats. It was, holidays, special occasions, it wasn't something that they just had every night after dinner. And that's something that's also really changed in our culture. It's like every night now, people think, oh, I deserve a sweet treat. And yeah, it's like when I go on about these like anti-diet dietitians who are like, oh, you just, you deserve to have something every single day. And it's okay. I'd rather you have a cookie every single day than, hinge eat because you're restricting yourself so much. And like my thing is like, look, I actually would rather not have that cookie every single day, even one cookie every day, because that will make it more likely that I will hinge eat later. Because the more I have of that stuff, the more I crave it. It's like they're talking about like, okay, the perception of portion sizes. It's like if I allow myself to have one cookie each night, that's quickly going to change into, oh, maybe two cookies, right? Oh, because one more won't hurt. For then it's three, then it's four. That's how it happens. This stuff is addicting. No one needs to eat this stuff every single day. Okay. And that's not restrictive or toxic to say. They didn't eat this stuff every single day back in the day, okay? And it was also probably a lot less calories and a lot less addictive than it was back in the day because it's made with different stuff now. But yeah, this idea that we, oh, we're toxic because we don't want to eat dessert every day or we just don't want to eat fast food. Back in the day, people didn't eat this stuff either. And you know what? They were thinner and healthier.
Cookies were homemade and portioned. A few cookies, not entire packages. They were often made for specific occasions rather than kept constantly available. Cookie consumption was controlled by the effort required to prepare them. Candy was penny candy, purchased by the piece. Candy bars were smaller than modern versions. Halloween and holiday candy was seasonal, not year-round temptation. Candy was a treat, enjoyed at treat-level frequency. Birthday cake was birthday-specific, not office cake.
Yeah, I bet you probably couldn't buy a birthday cake on the regular back then. Like, I mean, today when you go into every grocery store, they have cakes and pies and stuff already pre-made, right? So you can just take it whenever you want. I'm sure back in the day, you had to actually go to like a baker and you had to place an order, right, for the cake. Like they weren't just going to bake cakes and just sell them whenever, because no one would buy them, right? Unless it happened to be their birthday. So I'm sure I that was a lot different too. It's and I always say this too. It's like when you feel like, oh, you're having a bad day and you really want to hinge eat on that cake or that cookie, or you feel like you're restricting yourself because you're not eating the cake on someone's birthday. Birthday cake is never going anywhere. Right. It's not, you're not restricting yourself. It's not like you have to never eat this stuff forever. It's just like McDonald's is not going anywhere. Clearly, they've been around since like the 50s. Dunkin' Donuts is not going anywhere. This stuff is not going anywhere. It's always going to be there. So that's something to remind yourself of when you are on a diet or you're trying to be better or trying to reach a goal. That, stop this idea that I'm restricting myself and I just feel so bad. Girl, like it's not going anywhere. Like you will survive a few weeks without the cake and without the cookie, okay? Like you're not depriving yourself of anything.
Celebration cake or a random Tuesday cake. The cake was special because it was rare. Cake consumption was tied to actual celebrations. Fast food was actually fast and
And I think that's something too, like, again, so many people in my comments and just these stupid anti-dietitians, I have problems with them if you can't tell. When they talk about like, okay, how you should honor your cravings and let yourself eat certain things and let yourself eat the bad foods because they're not really bad foods. No foods are bad. It's like number one, no, that's not true. There are clearly some foods that are better for you than others. It just is what it is. But also, like, I don't feel the need to have to eat this stuff every single day. And in fact, I feel better and I enjoy that stuff better and more when I eat it more occasionally, when I eat it on actual celebrations. Like I could have a piece of cake every single day if I really wanted to and just, portion it out and make it work into my calorie intake. But I don't want to. Number one, because like I said, it does actually just make me feel more addicted to that stuff. It makes me think about it more and want it more. But also, number two, like it becomes less special. If I'm eating that cake or that cookie every single day, I just feel like, okay, you get used to it, right? And so I do like to have that stuff or save that stuff for special occasions because it actually tastes better and it actually becomes more of an experience and more enjoyable for me.
small. McDonald's was an occasional treat, not a daily food source. The portions were dramatically smaller than today. A hamburger, small fries, and a small Coke made a complete meal of about 600 calories, half of the modern equivalent. The McDonald's
Wow. Wow. 600 calories for an entire McDonald's meal? That's unheard of now. I'm sure it's probably like double that now, right? What is it, like 900, closer to 1,000 or more, depending on what you get, obviously. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm pretty sure like a large fry is somewhere close to 600 or like an extra large fry just for that, right? And you would eat that fry and still feel hungry. That's the crazy thing. So, yeah, that's crazy.
experience was designed for speed and turnover. Small portions, a limited menu, quick consumption. The restaurant was not a comfortable place to linger. You ate, and then you left. Kentucky Fried Chicken was a Sunday dinner alternative. A bucket of chicken for the family, coleslaw, and biscuits. The pieces were the normal size of a chicken piece. The sides were reasonable portions. KFC was a convenient family meal, not an individual feast. Pizza was Saturday night family food. One pizza shared by 4 people. The slices were normal size, and people ate reasonable amounts.
Yeah, they probably had like one slice each. Nowadays, like I could easily eat an entire pizza by myself.
Pizza was not a personal-sized or all-you-can-eat experience. Burger King, Taco Bell, and other chains existed, but they were not ubiquitous. Fast food was a convenience option, not a primary food source. The chains were special destinations rather than neighborhood fixtures. Food shopping was different.
Yeah, it is wild how so many people like fast food is a normal part of their weekly diet. Like some people are eating there not just once a week, but twice, 3 times a week. And that's just wild to me now as someone who just doesn't eat that stuff, like, ever or very rarely. I just can't imagine. It's so hard on my stomach now when I eat it. I enjoy it, don't get me wrong, okay? Like, this, past few weeks for my wedding, like, we were eating out a lot. I'm not gonna sit here and say, like, "You had to force me to eat the french fries," okay? You never have to force me to eat french fries or cake or cookies, but I do not feel my best after I eat that stuff. In the moment, I feel good, right? But then afterwards, when I feel bloated or puffy and I'm like, oh, I'm gaining weight, yeah, that doesn't feel too good. So yeah, I can't imagine like doing what I did these past couple of weeks, like all the time. It's so crazy, but I used to though. Clearly, I used to. And I know in my family, like we did eat fast food a lot. Like my dad would bring Kentucky Fried Chicken home a lot. We'd bring pizza home a lot. Yeah, fast food was more of a regular part of our diet.
Grocery stores were smaller, with fewer processed options. Most of the store
Mhm.
perimeter was fresh foods, produce, meat, and dairy. The center aisles had basics, but not endless varieties of processed foods. Shopping was planned and purposeful. Grocery lists were written and followed. Impulse purchases were limited by budget consciousness and
And also just the fact, like, they didn't have as much options back then. And marketing food, it wasn't like a huge, like, industry back then. I mean, I'm sure it was still pretty big, but not to the point where it is now, where they have every, aisle is filled with bright colors and things marketed specifically towards kids for the most part. But they really nailed the marketing tactics down, right? So when you go into the store and you see a box of something and it resonates with you because it has a cute character on you, or it's pink and it's glittery and sparkly, like they really nailed that down to convince people to impulse buy.
store layout. Shopping was efficient and focused. Convenience stores were truly convenient. Small stores meant for emergency purchases. They were not food destinations with hot food, massive soda fountains, and restaurant-style selections.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, food is everywhere now, anywhere you go. Gas station, even like going to Home Depot, when you do the checkout line, they've got candies and sodas. Like, why is that there at Home Depot, right? Because it's extra money, because I know that people will buy it. It's impulse buy.
The convenience was genuine, not an alternative food source. Bulk buying was not common because storage space was limited and food spoilage was a concern. People shopped more frequently for fresh ingredients rather than stockpiling processed foods with long shelf lives. Food
Exactly.
storage was limited by freezer and pantry space. The giant chest freezers and oversized pantries that would enable bulk processed food storage were not standard. Limited storage
Yeah, basically people had to work for their food more, right? Not only did they have to prepare it more, but they couldn't store it, so they had to go out and get something. It's like imagine it's like you're hungry, but it's late at night and there's no food left in the fridge because there's no space. It's like, well, probably just gonna wait till tomorrow, right? Until tomorrow to go get something, unless you feel like getting on your shoes and your coat at like 12 in the morning, right? Which is different now. We don't have to do that now because we've got 2 freezers, we've got 2 fridges, so we can stockpile as much food as we want.
encouraged fresh food consumption. What made the difference? High fructose corn syrup did not exist in the food supply yet.
Yep.
Sugar
This is something that I touched on in my book, actually, when I wrote it like, God, like 20 years ago now. High fructose corn syrup, that was when you saw a big spike. I think it was in the 1960s. You saw a big spike in obesity after that because it's a different kind of
was
sugar.
sugar, expensive and used sparingly.
But not only that, they also just started putting it into everything, though. Okay, things that you normally wouldn't think would need high fructose corn syrup, like, okay, different yogurts or breads or literally everything, right? All of American food has so much more sugar in it than it needs to.
The cheap industrial sweetener that would later flood processed foods was not yet available to food manufacturers. Food processing was less sophisticated. The hyper-palatable combinations of sugar, salt, and fat that would make food addictive
Yep, I say this all the
had not
time.
been engineered yet. Food
Mhm.
was food, not a carefully crafted delivery system for addiction.
Exactly. And that's why when people are like, oh, but they used to eat mashed potatoes and have real butter and stuff back in the day, food was different back in the day. It just was. Okay. Even the fast food was different back in the day. And the meatloaf and the ice cream or whatever, guarantee you the recipes called for a lot less sugar, a lot less sweetener. Okay. It called for a lot less butter, a lot less whatever. It was just totally different food. And it was from real sources too, which I think is also the difference when you have like these fake sugars and these other fake ingredients. They're things that are just fillers. They don't fill you up. They don't satiate you. So it allows you to eat more of it. Like we're talking about like the McDonald's meals and even like the pizzas and the different like fast food stuff. Like I can even sit here and say like I could easily probably eat like an entire, value meal from McDonald's or whatever and then some. I could. And most likely because it's all filler, it's all grease, right? Versus like, okay, if I were to eat like a steak and like a whole potato, that's a totally different thing, right? You're going to feel a lot more satiated than like the french fries that are, filled with grease and the meat patty that's probably not really meat. It's mostly filler and the hamburger bun, which is mostly sugar, that just goes right through you.
Substances. Portion sizes were standardized at reasonable levels. Restaurant
That's always
portions,
key.
packaged foods, and home servings were all smaller. The portion inflation that would come later had not begun. Eating occasions were limited and structured. People ate 3 meals a day, with minimal snacking, and clear boundaries around when eating was appropriate. The all-day grazing culture had not developed. Food marketing was limited and less sophisticated. The advertising budgets that would convince Americans to eat constantly had not been deployed. Food was necessity and fuel, not entertainment and comfort. Physical activity was incidental to daily life. People walked more, drove less, and
Mhm.
worked more physically demanding jobs. Exercise was not recreational. It was built into normal life patterns. The
Yeah.
transformation that
Yeah, I'm glad that he touched on or a little bit on the exercise portion of this as well. People did move more back then because they had to. There were less conveniences, okay? Even if you were a stay-at-home mom, you had to stay home, but you were cleaning and you were hanging laundry. You didn't have as many like different conveniences like a dishwasher. You had to wash it by hand. You had to do more cooking. There were just a lot more things that you had to do back then that we don't have to do now. I think also the car situation, right? Most families just had one car. And if they had to get anywhere, well, they'd walk or they'd take a bike. People did just move more. And it was just part of our culture back then, I guess. I mean, I think people also probably spent more time outdoors doing sports and different things because we didn't have as many video games. We weren't glued to our TV screens all the time. So that is a big portion of this as well. People were more active back then, even though they weren't in the gym, they were moving more. And what do I always talk about, right? Neat non-exercise activity thermogenesis where again a lot of these naturally skinny people we talk about all the time who are like well I never exercise I eat whatever I want. Well, a lot of these people though they've done studies and found that these naturally skinny people tend to do more neat, like they're cleaning more, they're pacing back and forth, they're fidgeting even, they burn more calories than they think because they are actually more active than they think. They're not working out but they are moving more, and on top of that also they just don't eat as much as they think they do.
followed. The late 1970s brought high fructose corn syrup to soft drinks. By 1980, Coca-Cola had partially switched from sugar to HFCS. The cheap sweetener made everything sweeter and cheaper. Food scientists discovered the bliss point, the exact combination of sugar, salt, and fat that makes food irresistible.
It's where it all began. It's where it all began, guys. But yeah, they started putting the high fructose corn syrup and everything, and the ketchups and all the sauces that taste sweeter, got us more addicted, and got us more used to the taste of sweet stuff. So that now, I'm sure if we were to go back and eat some of the stuff from back in the like 50s or 60s, whether it's like ketchup or even the bread, we taste it, we'd be like, bleh, like what's that? That's bland, right? And so once you get accustomed to that, it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back. And so they keep making it more palatable by adding more sugar, more salt, making the portion sizes bigger to satiate our now bigger appetites. So it's pretty devious,
Processed
actually.
food manufacturers began engineering products to hit this point precisely. Portion sizes began increasing as a competition tool. Bigger seemed better to consumers. Restaurants and food manufacturers used portion size as a competitive advantage.
Americans love a deal, right? It's so true. And I even see this in myself when I go out. I think it's something that has been so ingrained into us for so long now. It's like, oh, well, I can go to this restaurant and they give me a bigger portion size for the same amount of money. Like, even today, I feel gypped if I go to a restaurant and I'm like, oh, that's all I get. It may be a totally normal portion and probably better for me, but we are kind of conditioned now to see that because it's like, yeah, you want more for your money. However, you don't always need more for your money. And typically, the places that are giving you more for your money, quality of the food is
Marketing
less.
budgets exploded as food companies learned to create demand for constant eating. Snacking was repositioned from discouraged behavior to necessary fuel for active lifestyles. The results were predictable and tragic. Americans began gaining weight rapidly as the food environment changed. The obesity epidemic was not a failure of willpower. It was the inevitable result of systematic changes to the food supply and to our culture.
That's what I've been saying for a while. It's not your hormones, it's not your metabolism. You're eating too much. Okay. And it's not entirely your fault in that sense. Okay, if you are someone who, like me, you grew up in it. I think people in general, again, like my parents, right, they were children of the 60s and 70s. Like I said, they didn't have to think about it back then. And so all this stuff was happening and being introduced to them as well. So they fell for it, just like everyone else. Until one day they woke up and they're like, oh, wow, we're not healthy. And, then, me, their kid was obese. And, we all realized like we got to make some changes. Or at least I did once I found out that it was in my control, that, oh, it was because I was eating too much. Well, that was good news to me. Okay. I didn't want to be a victim. All right. I was happy when I found out that, oh, this is what calories do. Well, if I eat less of them, I'll lose weight. Sign me up. Sign me the F up, okay? Yeah, I don't know. That just sounded like a better solution than just like, I don't know, blaming everyone for me being fat and saying and lying and saying that's my hormones or it's whatever. Um, I don't know. Maybe that's just me though.
The thin Americans of the 1970s weren't thin because they were more disciplined. They were thin because everything about their food environment supported natural thinness. The portions, the frequency, the processing, the marketing, all of it was different. The changes that followed made weight gain inevitable for most people. Individual diet and exercise programs treat symptoms, not causes. The causes were environmental and systematic. Understanding what Americans ate in the 1970s shows what needs to change to restore natural thinness as a default condition. The solutions aren't individual, they're environmental and policy-based. For people who lived through the transformation, the contrast is obvious. Food was different, portions were different, eating patterns were different. Everything that affects weight was different.
So, I mean, I agree and disagree with what he's saying there as far as like, well, it's not a matter of willpower and it's not an individual decision. It has to be a systemic decision. I mean, yes and no. I mean, I do think that these food corporations should be held accountable for what they're doing. But at the end of the day, it is still an individual decision to lose the weight, to eat certain foods, to make different decisions. Because the thing is, like, these fast food's not going anywhere. Okay, these food corporations are not going anywhere. And I don't think that it is necessarily fair to say that, well, they can't keep making these foods, people can't keep starting restaurants, because that is capitalism. That is what it means to live in a free country. I mean, as far as, cracking down on them being able to market to certain people, to kids, or cracking down on what kind of ingredients they can put in our food, because as we know, a lot of stuff is really addictive or just downright harmful. But I mean, hey, if McDonald's wants to make a super duper Big Mac meal, I think they have the right to do that. But we also, as consumers, have to take that responsibility on ourselves and say, okay, well, you can make that big super duper meal, McDonald's, but I'm not going to buy it, right? I'm going to go for a healthier option. And I get that it's hard. I really get that it's hard for sure. But it is something that I think most people now, back in the day, they really were not aware of the changes that were happening to them. People didn't understand marketing. I didn't understand what these food corporations were doing as far as engineering this food to be addictive. Today, though, most of us do. Okay, we do know what's going on. We have the internet. We know that too many calories make us fat. So it is going to have to come down to an individual decision. I don't like this idea that, like, oh well, there's just nothing you can do about it. It's not your willpower. It's the system. It's the other people who made you fat. At the end of the day, you're the only one putting the fork into your mouth. Okay. You're the only one who can make decisions about yourself. It is harder. It totally is harder, I think, today for sure than it was back then. And it is also harder for certain people who are wired differently, okay, like you and me, because I think that we are more prone to being addicted to this kind of stuff. Where we talk about this all the time, right? The naturally skinny people, they existed back then, they exist today. And it's not that, oh, they just have so much more willpower. I mean, sometimes it is. Some people who grew up with different habits or who are more aware, conscious of what they eat and their figure. But a lot of times it is because they just like, oh, they can eat a few French fries and stop. Like their appetite is naturally small, so they just don't think about it as much, or they're naturally more active. Where I think back then, like you still had people who were more prone to addiction, but the lifestyle was just different, and the access to that food and the access to the amounts of the food that would take for people to be obese just didn't exist.
The 1970s food environment produced thin Americans naturally. The environment that followed produced
Yeah.
obese Americans inevitably. The difference wasn't personal, it was systematic. For those who remember eating in the 1970s, the memories are of moderation and satisfaction. Reasonable portions that were enough, treats that were special, meals that were fuel rather than entertainment. The lesson is clear. Americans weren't thin in the 1970s because they tried harder. They were thin because
Mhm.
trying wasn't necessary. The food
I think that was a very good video and basically it says everything that I have been saying for a long time. And I think a common thing, he kept reiterating is that portion sizes, right? Portion sizes, activity level, and just in general, the culture around food. It wasn't part of our culture to just eat all the time. It wasn't part of our culture to have dessert every single night or to eat out all the time. And that has dramatically changed since the 1960s, 1970s. And I think it just goes to show that the obesity epidemic is not a mystery. It's not just something that's natural to humans. It's because of big food corporations. It's because of eating too much. It's because of bigger portion sizes. It's because of too much sugar. Surprise, but it's not really a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise. It's common sense. Unfortunately, I think we live in an era where common sense is not so common, as they say. Well, anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you to the person who sent this video to me. It was an interesting watch. And I totally agree with it, except for the part about, oh, it's not just a willpower thing and it's not an individual thing. At the end of the day, we all have to take care of ourselves. I agree. That would be awesome if we could make some systemic changes where, yeah, food corporations couldn't manipulate us as much, but I don't really realistically see that happening. It comes down to us. We have to make the decision. If we want to lose weight, we want to get healthy, we have to take different actions, make different decisions, and we have to keep at it. You have to be consistent. Look, even me, I'm watching this stuff and I'm looking at the fast food and I'm like, that looks pretty good, right? And like I said, I could easily eat a lot. I don't though, because I made the decision years ago that I was done being fat. I'm not going back there. And, we're not always going to be perfect, but you have to keep working at it. And if it's something that you want, if you want to live a healthier life, if you want to live a longer life, if you want to look better and feel better, it's just a decision that you have to make and you have to be consistent about it. It's hard work. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not going to be hard, but the more you do it and the more you accept that's going to be hard, the easier it gets. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, if you want to see more episodes or more videos that are maybe not a lot on YouTube, check out my Spotify, Whitney Holcomb, and be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when I upload new ones. I am just getting back into my schedule as I've been out for my wedding, officially a married woman. So it's good to be back and making these videos. I appreciate you all so much. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.